Okay, so today I'm going to show you I'm going to show you a little bit of GUI stuff. So we're going to go to File, we're going to go to New, and we're going to create a new project. This time we're going to create a Windows Forms application. This is the simpler way to do GUI stuff in C#. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to call this project GUI, and of course the solution is going to be called GUI as well. Hit OK. Okay, now this is scary because this is a lot more stuff than we saw last time, right? So let's just slowly digest everything that's here. Okay, so now if we look on the left, we still have our solution. We still have one project. We still have our properties, our references. We still have our program.cs. This is what actually creates the form and runs it, basically. So see, we're creating a new form 1 right here. Now, we really probably aren't going to want to touch this program.cs very much. What we are going to change is we're going to change the form. So this is the big new piece. App.config also exists here. We aren't going to have to touch this. We're going to want our .NET Framework 4.5, and we're not going to add anything here. So let's take a look at our form. If we expand it here, we have a form.cs, and if we double-click this, that's what this guy is. This is our design. So this shows us what the form actually looks like if we were to actually draw it on the screen. Our designer, this is all of the code that actually builds this form. That's what it's all based off of. So, if you go back to form, these are all the properties of the form. There's a lot of properties. These aren't even all expanded. There's a lot of stuff you can tweak about this form. So we're not going to worry about much of that right now. What I'm actually going to show you is how to just create a really, really basic just button form. Okay, so we're going to go to View, and we want to see the Toolbox, which is about halfway down. You can also do Control-WX to open this. So okay, my toolbox is down here for whatever reason. I'm gonna put it on top of this guy. Okay, so when you open the toolbox, it should look something like this. I like expanding all Windows forms, and then it just gives you everything, more or less alphabetically. So, okay, let's say we want to make a button. Perfectly reasonable. We can just draw a button. There it is. Just slap it on. Button done. We can move it around. We can resize it if we want to. If we want to change, some stuff about the button, what we might want to do is we can go to Properties over here. If the Properties window does not exist for you, you can click the View. And there should be a Properties in here. I don't know where this is because I usually don't have to open it. Properties window. Control-W, P. So, here we can change the text. We can change this to say something like show time. Hit enter. Now it says show time. Very nice. And if we want this button to actually do something, if we look right now, these green bars, these means that I've saved, but this is the changes that have been made since I last saved. So here's something handy. When we created the new button, look, inside of the initialize component, see, it creates the button, it draws it to the screen. This is where all this stuff is being done. So making changes here, all that's really doing is putting a bunch of stuff in here. So if we want to add something to the button, we want to make it do something, what we do is we double click it. And look, excuse me, this designer file, yeah, that just tells you how the form is made. This is where all of your code is going to go. Incidentally, public partial class. This is one of the really nice keywords that C# has that Java does not. Partial allows you to stretch a class definition over multiple files. Well, you might say, well, why on earth would I want to do that? Well, this. Do you really want all this? This is auto-generated code. This is your code. As a general rule, it's nice to not have them in the same file. In Java, what you might do is you might wrap it, but in this case, you can just do a partial class, and that way, your machine-generated code and your handwritten code exist in two different places. So if this ever gets all out of whack or stuff happens, you don't have to worry about it touching any of your stuff. And that's the general use of partial classes. You shouldn't really use them just for the heck of it. You should use them when you have auto-generated code working with code that you've written. So what this does is when we double-clicked this button, what happens is these forms are event-driven. So that means that whenever an event happens, like somebody clicks a button, it triggers an event, and most events, all the built-in C# events have this sort of syntax. So basically, this is the function that's going to run when you double-click on the button. Don't be afraid of these. 99% of the time, you're probably not going to use them. Object sender, remember that everything extends object. So this is just the guy that raised the event, quite simply. So it would be the button itself. Event args, excuse me a minute. Event args are kind of like object, but they wanted to specify that, this is any associated state or data that's pertinent to the event that we might want to use. There are a bunch of different types of classes that extend event args, like there's keyboard event args. Okay, I don't have the using directive for that, but there are mouse event args, stuff like that exists. Yeah, mouse event args, see? So we can do e dot, and we see that mouse event args, look, it has all this pertinent information to mouses, to the mouse. So there's the button, the X and the Y button, the delta if we're using the scroll wheel. So we can get all this sort of useful information from event args. So general event args don't have very much in them. They're basically just another layer on top of object. So really, don't be afraid of event args, they just exist. You're probably not going to use them in most cases unless you're trying to transfer state via events. So, okay, let's take a look at this. We don't really have anywhere else we can display this right now, so let's add a label. So we're going to open our toolbox. Let's drag on a label. And it's nice because, it'll snap things too. That's nice. Oop. I accidentally added a label click. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to change the text. Properties, text. Time. Oops. That's fine. Middle center's fine. So, interesting note that I want to bring up real quick. Say you're working with this and you really don't like label 1. You have to touch it some places. You don't like it. You don't like how this is named label 1. You can change that in the name over here. So under design, my label. And we do that, and that'll change it everywhere in the code. See, now this is my label. It doesn't work for this because this isn't a direct, this doesn't directly use the label itself. So if you ever want to change what it looks like in your code, you want to change it here because this changes all of the files that touch it, basically. So, okay, let's go back to our button click method, and we'll say my label dot text, notice it's a property, equals, and we'll use datetime dot now, just as an example. Excuse me, dot toString. It doesn't call that implicitly. This is complaining about culture info. We're making stuff for the US only, so we don't care. And there, we click the start button, and here's our little form. And if we click on the show time button, it shows the current time. It's a little late, huh? And that's basic form stuff. We'll go over a few other things next time, I think.